Hello and welcome back. And in this video, we are going to discuss about the files. What are the files? And we will see the example as how we can write to a file and how we can read from a file. So first of all, I will give you all these notes in the resource section. You can download it from there. So these are the notes about the files that I'm going to explain you. So these notes will be really helpful for you to understand the basic concepts related to the file. So first of all, let us understand what is a file. So file is basically a stream. Before you understand the file, you should understand what is a stream. A stream is nothing but the flow of data from a program to a device or vice versa. For example, when you are writing a file, then you are writing it to a hard disk, right? You have a hard disk, and when you are saving your file, then it is getting saved on your hard disk. So hard disk is a device, and your program is a simple software, right? So from a software to the device, this device can not only be the hard disk, it can be your keyboard, it can be your screen, it can be your mouse. All these are the input output devices, right? Like your screen is an output device, your printer is an output device. So no matter what kind of data transfer are you doing, everything is a file handling thing, everything is a stream. So a stream is nothing but the flow of data from program to a device or vice versa. And in the file handling, you do exactly the same. So the files, in terms of programmer, for a programmer, it should be the correct definition should be the flow of data from a program to a device or vice versa is known as the file. Okay. And what happens when you are writing to or reading from a file? Basically, between your program and between your device, right? The source is your program and the destination is your device. So between the source and the destination, there is a buffer. Buffer means some memory area which has been, cached in your program. That's a cache, something like you can say a cache memory. So in that cache memory, the information is stored, whatever you are going to transfer from the source to the destination or from destination to the source. From source to the destination means you are writing something from your file to your hard disk, right? You're creating a file on the hard disk, and your program is writing some content to that file, which is on the disk. So the source is your program, and the destination is the disk file, the disk location, right? So between the source and the destination, which means between the program and the device, there is a buffer, there is a memory area, which is known as the cache. In that cache, everything is stored. Whatever we are going to write or whatever you are going to read from the from the target device, everything first comes to that cache, that particular buffer. And from that buffer, based on the programming done by the library function of the Python, based on that, the buffer is transferred to your program or transferred to your device based on what type of operation you're performing. If you're performing the write operation, then the content goes from the buffer to the device. And if you are reading from the device, then in that case, contents are transferred from the buffer to your program, right? Which is just like reading the file, right? So this thing you must need to understand. These are the basic concepts related to the file. So let us understand what is the meaning of file opening for writing. If you are going to open a file for writing, then it means that you are opening a buffer and bringing the data. You are bringing the data from the file if file exists. Let me write like if file exists and if opened in append mode. Sometimes you open the file in append mode, which means you want to add something at the end of the file. That mode is known as the append mode of the file, right? So if you're going to write the file from the beginning, then it is known as the writing the file. I mean, you are putting your file pointer at the beginning of the file. So if you are appending something, if you are going to write something at the end of a file which is already there on your hard disk, then in that case, it is, it happens that the content, when you open the file for writing, then a buffer area is created, and also the contents which are all on the hard disk, they remain there, right? Because you are going to write. But yes, if you are opening the file in both the writing and reading mode, then in that case, that content also come to the buffer, right? But in case of simple writing mode, you open the file buffer and don't you open the buffer, but you don't bring the data, right? Bring the data in append mode plus read or read and write mode. Not in append mode, basically open in read plus write mode, right? So just correct it. It should be read plus write mode. When you open the file in the read and write both modes, you can open a file in both the modes so that you can perform read and write operations both. So in that case, what happens that both the read and write operations can be performed. And in that case, since the read operation can also be performed, so data comes from the hard disk to your buffer, right? Otherwise, you open the buffer which is empty. If you don't, in case only write mode, okay, in case of only write mode, and you don't want to perform the read operation, then in that case, buffer is open, which is empty. Writing means writing to the buffer and not the actual device. When you write the content to the file, then it doesn't mean that you are writing directly to the hard disk device. It means that you are writing to the buffer and based on the program logic or the functional logic that has been written by the Python library, based on that, after a certain limit, the buffer will be cleaned up and that buffer will be flushed out to your hard disk device, right? Suppose the buffer size, is 250 MB. So until the 250 MB data is there in the buffer, till then your buffer will not be flushed out to the device. I'm just giving you an example. It doesn't mean that it happens only with the 250 MB. It may be it's only for the 60 MB. It may be that it's only for the 64 MB or 32 MB. So as soon as 32, 64, whatever logic is written there, based on that, the content are transferred to the actual device. So this you must need to understand. These are very core and very basic concepts related to the file handling, which you will not find everywhere, right? So this must be known to you so that file handling becomes a piece of cake for you. File handling is nothing, not at all a tough topic. It has made very tough because these things are not clearly told to you, right? So you must need to know these things now. So data from buffer is transferred to actual device automatically per the method behavior. It can also be flushed to the device explicitly. If you want to flush the content explicitly, right, there is a specific limit after which the Python method, like you will be using the read and write methods. So after a certain limit only, after a particular size is filled for the buffer, then only the data is transferred to the device or data is transferred to your program. But if you want to do that explicitly, which means that if you want to flush the contents to the device on at your own will, then in that case, there is a function called flush that has been provided by the Python library. So that we will discuss very soon, right? And now we will discuss about file opening for reading. What is the meaning of file opening for reading mode? You open the buffer and bring the data from device, which is very much obvious. Reading means reading from the buffer and not the actual device, right? So if you have opened some file in the read mode for reading, then in that case, the data will come first from the hard disk device to your buffer, which is the cache which you have opened, right? So that will come to your buffer. And reading means you are not reading from the device, you are reading from that buffer, which was created at the time of opening the file in the read mode, right? And data from buffer is transferred to program automatically and you don't need to worry about how it is done. This is high level file handling. I mean, high level file handling means the buffer management is done by the programming language itself. When the buffer management is done by the programming language itself, then it is known as the high level file handling, right? And it can also be flushed. This is extra line. This I copied for the from the from here, so that is why it came here. But otherwise, this is fine. File opening and file opening for reading and file opening for writing, both the things have been clarified now. If you have any doubts, you must need to ask the question to me, because this is a very important concept. If you don't understand this, then file handling programs and file handling things will not be easy for you. Okay, so now uh, we have understood the high level and low level file handling as well. So in case of Python, we are just going to handle about the high level file handling in this course. Okay. Now let us see how to write a code so that we can write to a file or read from a file. So first of all, I'm going to write to a file and then I will read from the same file. So if you have to open, I'm just going to write a simple code in this particular lecture. In the next lecture, we will see that in how many different modes and in how many different ways we can write to the file and read to the file line by line and whatever, right? But in this lecture, I'm just going to tell you a very simple approach to write to a file some content, some text to a file, right? I will write 2 or 3 lines, 3 or 4 lines in the file. So first of all, we have to open a file. So if we have to open a file in the write mode, since we are going to write, so we have to open the file in the write mode. So in that case, what you need to do, you need to write open and then you need to give the name of the file. So here I'm going to give the name of the file. I will create the file in the Vikash folder, test file.txt. This will be the name, and I'm going to open the file in the write mode. So this will be the write mode, W. W is the write mode. Okay, W means I'm just going to write it. So if I'm going to create a file in the write mode, then no matter if the file exists there or not, this file will be overwritten. All the contents will be overwritten. It will become an empty file. And now whatever I will write, it will be written from the beginning of the file. So it means that when you open the file in the write mode, then everything is overwritten in that file, and the new contents that you're going to put, they will be there in your file. So now I'm just going to write something. So for that, I need to write function. And here I'm just going to write like hi, because it's my name. So after that, I'm going to put a slash n so that it prints the next line. So f dot write, and I'm going to write like I am from India. Okay, and now slash n. Okay, so next line f dot write I am an engineer, and again slash n, right? After that, f dot write from where you belong. Okay, so with this I will just close my file. After writing all the content to the file, you need to close the file, f dot close. So I'm closing it. So now let us see how it works. Okay, so I'm just going to put a breakpoint here, and let's see how does it behaves. Okay, so I'm just going to run it, start debugging so that I can open the file. So if I just come here and if I move to the next line F10, then the file will be opened. So if you see this file in the in the designated location, so in that case it's like Vikas, and my file name is it's file test text. Let me write like date modified. Yes, the file test file.txt. So in this file you cannot see any code, anything you cannot see here. Now what I'm going to do to move to the next step. And hi Vikash. Let us see if hi Vikash has been written here. No, nothing written here. If I go to the next line, I am from India. Anything written here? No, still not written here. If I go to the next line, I am an engineer. Is this written? Open it again. Nothing written. And if I go to the next line, from where you belong, this line is also executed, but still you cannot see anything in here, right? Now, if I do close, right, please remember that when you close, the file contents which are in the buffer, they will be flushed out to the device. If you call the close function, then in that case they are flushed out to the device. If you don't close, right, if you're going to write a number of contents here, if you're going to write to a big size file, then in that case it will flush the contents automatically through the file when the limit as per set by the Python programming language. I mean, whatever it has set, whatever size it has set for the buffer, after that size is filled, after that size is exhausted, it will automatically move it to the device, right? It will transfer it to the device. But here in this case, since these are very less contents, so until you call the f.close, it will not be moved to the device. So now if I do f.close, now if you see, if you run this, if you open this, then you can see all the things had been flushed out, right? So this is what the concept of file handling is, right? This is how you must need to understand, you must need to start your file handling understanding. Otherwise, you won't be able to understand what exactly is a file. Now, whatever we discussed on the top, now you can see all those things were discussed here, right? Okay, suppose you want to write these contents line by line. You want that as soon as I write this and after that it should be written. So you can do one more thing. After every line, you can do f.flush. So as soon as you flush, then what happens that flush means whatever content is there in the buffer, just put it to the device. So let me do again that's f.flush, and now again f.flush, and again f.flush, right? Now let us see what happens. So this time, since we are again going to write it, so file will be opened in the write mode and the file will be overwritten, which means file will be cleaned up. So if you open it again, the contents are removed because a new file has been opened now. Now I'm just going to call the f.write hi Vikash. So if I see if anything written here because I have called the write function, no, nothing written here. But now, as soon as you will do flush explicitly, this hi Vikas will be visible here. You can see it is visible here, right? So this is how the flush is done from the buffer to the device. I am from India, right? So I have just called this, and now if I do flush, you can see the second line also written here. I am from India. Now, as soon as I do this, and if I do flush for the third line, and and I again come back here, and if I see this again, you can see everything is going to be written. So flush is the method to explicitly put the contents to the file. So now if I do something like this, f.flush from where you belong, everything is there now. But yes, you can see it line by line. So this thing can be done when you are debugging your application. If you want to see some specific things into your application, if some bug is coming and some client says that this particular line is not getting printed, so you can see why it is not getting printed, what are the situations, so you can do this kind of flush, right? So based on your need, wherever you want to flush the things, you can do it explicitly, and you can simply understand where the problem is exactly, right? So this was all about the writing to the file, right, for today's lecture. But yes, again, we have to read this content from the file. So if you have to read the content from file, you need to open the file in the read mode. Okay, so I'm going to open the file in the read mode. So if I open the file in the read mode, and if I want to read all the content from the file into a buffer, right, into a variable, then in that case, what happens that if I write like this, data is equal to f dot read, then what happens that all the contents from the file testfile.txt in the read mode will come to the buffer, and as soon as you call f.read, all the data from buffer is transferred to this variable which is named as data. So I hope you must be clear now, like how what is happening. You open the file in the read mode, which means that a buffer has been opened to read the content from the file, and all the contents from the device has been put into this buffer at this line. On line number 23, this has happened. The file has been opened from the device, which means that the content of the file which exists on that hard disk, they have been taken from there, and they have been now put into the local buffer, right? And now when you call read, then in that case, from that local buffer, all the contents of the file, they will be taken and they will be transferred to this variable data. And if I print it now, you will be able to see all the content written on the screen. So let me clear it so that you can clearly see it. Let me move it, and now let me run it. No need to debug, so I will just do simple run without debugging. So here you go. Hi Vikas, I'm from India. I'm an engineer. So whatever we have written, that we can see how to read it, right? After reading as well, it's your responsibility that you close the stream, the file, right? Otherwise, the file handle will open, and the other person who is going to read the file or write to the file, he will get the error, right? So as soon as you are done with your operation, you must need to close your file. So I hope you might have understood the concept of files and how to read and write to or from a file. Okay, so I will just copy the code for writing the file and reading the file both here, and you can take it from the resources section. Thank you.